Irreverent, entertaining, cool. You're listening to LA Talk Radio.
You're listening to Find the Radio with Ethan Dettenmaier and Adrian Paul, right here on LA Talk Radio.
Oh, well, that was good. I like that.
Yeah,
we got a double whammy this
that.
morning. This is Ethan Dettenmaier and Adrian Paul.
It wasn't nearly as bad as you're making it out.
No, but it's fun to do it, isn't it?
Sure, what you're. There's way too much drama with that. It was two buttons got punched thanks to the technician. I'm sorry.
I see, but you're looking very, very like concerned about it. I find it very amusing, actually.
I'm just here to, I don't know, produce a show and make sure you sound good.
Okay, let's take it down a notch. Oh, there's a smile from Ethan there. I saw that.
I'm not smiling at anything you said.
Good morning, Ethan. How are you?
I'm fantastic, man. How are you?
Good. Hope everybody out there's doing well.
You've had a good week. You want to bring anyone up to speed?
Well, I've not had a good week. I've had a traumatic week, going backwards and forwards on funding.
Things were very
Well, it's really interesting because
together.
Yeah, they are very close, and then they fell apart about 4 days ago, and then today I just found out they might be stitched back again. So it's kind of like going up and down, up and down, up and down. We'll see. And then another opportunities come back around, which is very interesting as well. So there's a lot of things that are circling at the moment.
Good.
But it's having the time to do them, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
really,
the truth.
That's really it. So, but, did you know it's the 8th Annual World Autism Awareness Day, April 2nd, tomorrow. So every year, autism organizations around the world celebrate this day with unique fundraising and awareness-raising events. How will you celebrate? Light the world up blue this April. Light it up blue in a campaign held by www.autismspeaks.org to honor people with autism worldwide. Each year, thousands of buildings are lit up blue, and events are held to help the campaign.
What are you doing for it?
I'm going to be blue. I think I'm going to do. I think I'm wearing blue today. Look, that's part of it. No, but the interesting things we talked about autism. How autism is one of those things that was clamped together with diseases or like mental illnesses before, and then suddenly everybody said, well, no, that's autism. It's a totally separate disease. And now people are saying, well, it's on the rise. Well, it's not necessarily on the rise. It was just basically clamped in with all those other mental disability illnesses before. So unfortunately, now we know a lot more about it. And I think autism is really interesting. Who's to say what is normal, though? I mean, that's the interesting thing.
Well, in your case,
don't start with me. Don't start with
diagnosis. And I'm not sure that there's enough professional credentials around to really tell people what is normal.
Well, the interesting thing is when you're dealing with the brain, it's a very complex organism, and what autism has is one part of that brain is highly, highly used. I mean, you hear and see, I've seen it myself on videos, how autistic children can count numbers extraordinarily, or in one case I saw a young man who was went over Rome for 40 minutes, and then proceeded in the next 2 weeks to draw the entire landscape of Rome picture perfect. I mean, there were 2 mistakes in it, and he was only over the city for 35 minutes in a helicopter. And then he drew the entire landscape.
That's impressive.
So, I mean, when you're thinking about that, so what is normal? It's basically it's where the brain is actually able to be contacted in a slightly different place. We use our brains in different ways. And so who's to say where human evolution is actually going? I mean, what is autism? So...
Well, that's an interesting way to put it, isn't it?
Well, it really is when you think about it. So
that's a Kubrick-esque.
Where's John Beerley this morning? Is John Beerley still around?
Yes, he is.
Is he around? John Beerley, are you there? Hello, John. John.
It says he's on the line.
John is in the closet again. That's what happens when you're in the closet, and he's somewhere.
You may want to have to explain what exactly
that means. He's actually probably inside a closet doing this radio show somewhere, because his boss is very good. It allows him to do the show. But let's see if we can get John on this morning, because I actually want to bring him in early this week. And there's a reason for that. There's definitely a reason for that.
Guys, can you see? Oh, you can seriously not hear me?
Oh, now I can hear you.
Well,
now we can hear you, John. Good morning, John.
Good morning, guys.
I was talking about your closet, but, it's probably not. a closet anymore, is it? It's probably like an entire
It's
studio.
It's more like equipment that's older than I am, I think, in some circumstances. So yes. Good morning. How are you doing?
You should probably define what you mean when you say closet.
Yeah, well, what do you mean? Me define it or him define it?
Well, no. The running joke is that on one of the early shows, I literally did the show from inside a utility closet at my workplace because it was the quietest place that I could find that day to do the show. And as Adrian said, my boss, Dr. Wilson Stim, is always very generous to give me a late lunch on Wednesday afternoons so I can be on the show. He's a great supporter of the Peace Fund and a great supporter of the show and all the great work we do. So.
Well,
thank you again, boss.
Lots of lovely stuff, and thank you, boss, for letting John do this, because what he does is he brings us our heroes of the week. And I actually want you to talk about our hero of the week this week early, and there is a reason for that.
Yes, a very special reason. Our hero of the week this week is Riley Gantt from an organization, a 501c3 charity called Rainbow Pack, which you can find at rainbowpack.org. And what Rainbow Pack does is they supply school supplies to students who are in need. And as Adrian said, I don't want to get into too much detail because we have a very special surprise coming up very soon. I will say that Riley was one of this year's We Are Family Foundation's 3. Global Teen Leaders, which is an extremely prestigious honor that many of our heroes of the week have enjoyed and participated in. And we're going to hear all about what Riley is up to very soon.
So, it's funny when you said "We Are Family." I think of that song, "We Are Family."
I think everybody does.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, I just jump into that. The reason we're bringing this because right now we're in our next phase of the Peace Fund Radio. This month we're going to be talking about education. Every child has the right to learn. An educated population is the country's greatest wealth, and we know this very, very well. Education transforms lives and breaks the cycle of poverty that traps so many children. An educated child will make sure his own children receive an education. And the other thing is, with education and knowledge, there is less fear and hatred and isolation. There's so many things that when you're educated about a certain subject, that it helps you and the people around you be better people in this society. It's the single largest determining factor for future economic status as well. Yet 130 million people worldwide are still not in school, and 70% are girls. If a girl cannot complete secondary education, she's at higher risk of illiteracy, HIV, and early marriage, offering little chance of reaching her potential. So the reason why we brought this, the hero of the week early this week, Riley Gantt, is because I have her in the studio. Hello, Riley. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing very well.
Very good. I think we've got your mic getting up a little bit. Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. So you're in here with your mom, and your mom doesn't want to speak on the radio. She's shaking her head at the moment. She's shaking it, which is great. But that's okay. That's fine. So where did you come in from this morning?
I'm really close to the studio, so just down in Sherman Oaks.
Awesome. So you go to school in the area?
I actually go to school in Chatsworth at Sierra Canyon.
Okay, yeah. Okay. So how old are you, first of all?
I'm 14.
14! Oh my gosh. My daughter's 5, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's only 10 years away for teenage years. So the name of your organization, I can't even talk this morning. Organization is what? Say that.
Rainbow Pack.
Rainbow Pack. And why did you come up with Rainbow Pack?
Well, I was 10 when I started it, so I think at first it was just sort of like, oh, that's just sort of a fun name. But over the years, it's sort of taken on a lot of meaning because a rainbow can mean diversity, and we're also dealing with elementary school kids, so it's fun. And then the pack can represent the physical backpack we give the kids, or, the group of people or the pack that supports us and that we give the rainbow packs to.
So okay, let's go back. We're going back in time here. You started it, why, and when did you start it?
So I started it when I was in 5th grade, so I was 10 years old, and I went on a service learning trip to a school called Haddon Avenue Elementary in Pacoima, California. And I was talking with some of the students, and one of the little girls at the table said that she wanted a box of the skinny crayons, but her mom said she couldn't afford them, and this absolutely astounded me. I couldn't believe that there was a kindergarten student that didn't have crayons to just color. So I ran home to my mom and I was like, Mom, we have to do something about this. We have to do some sort of crayon collection drive. And then things just sort of snowballed from there.
As they do. Yeah. As they do. And you know what? A lot of things we actually have from our Heroes of the Week every week is the fact that the moms and the dads are the ones that really are also the heroes because they support you.
Yeah.
And they're not the ones that say children must be should be seen and not heard. That's the word.
Yeah.
You know, so I haven't said it in such a long time that I don't know. But I think it's really, thanks to your mom and your dad that you're able to sit here with me today and have done what you've done.
Honestly, I wouldn't be able to do it because there are so many parents that, if I had come home and said this, they would just been like, oh, no. It was like, it's too much work, just go away. But my mom was super supportive, and my parents never put it into my head that I couldn't do anything I set my mind to, and that, being 10 years old and starting an organization, to me, wasn't crazy. So I really couldn't have done it without them.
Do you know how many 30-year-olds would go, oh, I can't do it now. I don't know how to do that. When you're 10 years old, there are no limits. That's the great point about it, I think.
Yeah.
So what advice did your mom give you?
She when I was first starting out, because I was just so excited, she said that we should probably learn a little bit more information about the issue first. So we actually got in contact with the school social worker who said that the problem was much bigger than just crayons. It was every single basic school supply. And then we just sort of started fundraising and asking friends and family. And again, it just sort of took off and we got amazing support.
So what's in a rainbow pack?
There are a lot of things in a rainbow pack. They're all new supplies, and they're all very basic. It's pencils, crayons, erasers, glue sticks. The older kids get binders and rulers. The younger kids get, pretty much the same thing. We have 2 different, levels of rainbow packs, based on the supplies we give them being grade appropriate. So it's really basic.
So how do you choose? Okay, you go into, do you get a list of schools in certain areas that are underfunded? I mean, how do you look at places that you actually donate items to?
So we actually have the support of board member Monica Ratliff, who runs District 6, which is the area we work with.
Sounds like a film, like District 9.
Yeah. So her and her team provide us with a list of the high-need schools in the area based off of the percentage of kids that are on food assistance. And so we look at that list and we pick which schools. We actually also get approached by some schools who are in desperate need. And we're at a point right now where we actually have too many schools to help, and we're getting people that we're having to kind of turn away and be like, I'm sorry, but we can't help you this year because we just don't have the funds.
Do you find that there is a very big need in California? I mean, you deal with California mainly, right?
Yeah.
So is there a big need in California for this? Do you find that there's so many schools?
An enormous need in California and all over the world, but especially in California. I mean, there are just thousands and thousands of kids who can't do their homework because they don't have the supplies, and they end up dropping out. And
see, it's interesting. I the other day with my daughter, I actually sat there and she was like, I don't want to feed, I don't want to do this. And I said, do you know how many children in the world there are that don't? And she looked at me, she's 5. So she looked at me like, what do you mean? And I said, let me show you some pictures. And my wife's like, don't show her the bad ones. Don't show the really bad ones. I'm like, okay, yeah. So I showed her and she looked at them and went, you mean they don't have anything to eat? And I think it really dawned on her for the first time what it meant to have food on the table. And I think the same thing applies to education. When we go to schools, and we're lucky enough to be in certain schools, and we get things like crayons and pencils and rulers and computers and musical instruments and things of that nature, we take it for granted. We don't realize there's an enormous amount of kids out there that actually do not have that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how did your first event make you feel? I mean, did that sort of, were you nervous? Because you came in this morning, you were like, oh, God, I'm not nervous here this morning.
It was absolutely incredible. Seeing the direct impact that we had on those kids' lives. I mean, their faces were they were smiling and they were happy. And I mean, you would have thought it was Christmas or something. I mean, they were like opening up the backpack and they're like, look at the presents, look at the toys. Like, oh my gosh, I have 6 pencils now. Like, it was insane. And it just made me feel so amazing that I was actually able to have an impact on someone else's life.
So where do you get the backpacks from and the supplies? I mean, you say you have certain funding, but do you get in-kind donations as well?
We do get in-kind donations. Most of the supplies come from working with a wholesaler because we found they give us the best price on the backpacks and supplies. But we do get in-kind donations. The main thing we try and stress is that if we are getting an in-kind donation, it has to be a new supply. We can't get old ones because that's part of the fun of it is that these kids, they're used to getting hand-me-downs, but new stuff, that's something completely different.
Right. How many of these packs have you delivered so far?
To date, we've given out over 5,500.
5,500?
Yeah.
In how many years is that?
This is going to be our 5th year.
Your 5th year?
Yeah.
Awesome. Are you finding that you're getting more funding, more supplies, more people requesting things? Is that how it's kind of snowballing, as you said before?
Yeah, it's definitely... We are getting so much more support because our audience has grown from just our friends and family to friends of our friends and family, and it just keeps growing and growing and growing, and it's really amazing to watch it.
What do you think is the one item that is the most important? If you could name one, you said pencils and rulers and stuff. What's the one item kids have? And there's another question as well. What age groups do you go to? You mentioned kindergarten. Do you go up to grade 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10? What's the area you go to?
So the main supply that I think kids need the most, that's difficult. I honestly think...
I put you on the spot, didn't I?
All of them are really important. I think pencils are one of the most important because they're just so basic and you need them. Goodness, I don't think I could go a day without using a pencil.
Now that's really interesting because we've done in the past month we've been dealing with media and children and how the iPad and the iPhone and tablets and all those types of things are taking away the ability for children to actually write. Have you found that? Does your mom allow you to use an iPad and that? And what age were you given that type of thing? I'm kind of interested because you're mentioning pencils now. Because
I don't know. When I got an iPad or something, I was older. My first phone was when I was in 4th grade, because I moved schools and it was farther away than to home than I was before. iPads and computers, I don't know. I think I was fairly young, but I still was a very imaginative and active child. I didn't really spend a lot of time on it because when I was little, it still was just coming out. But I think that it's still really important for kids to have, the basic things like, pencils because, these kids, they don't really even have the access to technology, so there's no real alternative to that. They have, a computer lab, but, iPads, that's not even really a thing.
Yeah, the discussion we've had about writing, there are a lot of children don't get to the writing stage now because they do go to the phone or the iPad, etc., which is a problem, I find, because that's a basic human motor skill, which is eye-brain coordination, etc., which I think is very important for so many other things in life. So I think when you're talking about drawing and writing and stuff like that, I think, that's one of the things me personally as a parent will want to stress on my kids, which I do, and my daughter loves to write. Now my son, he's 2.5, he's kind of scribbling on stuff and stuff, but I think, did you find that do you like to draw? Do you like to write? Or what?
Yeah, art has always been a really, really big part of my life. My mom owned an art store when I was little, so I pretty much...
you were lucky, weren't you?
Yeah. I pretty
got
much,
supplies for free.
Yeah, I pretty much grew up there. So everything creative, writing, drawing, I've always been very hands-on. When we would go to restaurants and stuff as a kid, my mom didn't just I don't think iPads were really a big thing yet, but she didn't just put an iPad in front of me. We had this big craft bag, and it had all sorts of weird stuff like glitter and glue, and we just made a complete mess of everything. But I wasn't just
your mom's nodding her head behind you at the moment. She's yeah, I remember those days.
But it was really cool because I didn't just sit there and ignore everyone around me. It's a really basic thing that's super important.
So what is one of the stories that really stands out for you?
About Rainbow Pack?
Yeah.
So there's this one story that I love telling, and it almost brings me to tears when I tell it, but there was this grandma, and she takes care of her 5 kids, and she came into the school, and she was really distraught because she was only able to buy one set of school supplies for the eldest child. And this, she was just really, distraught and apologizing to the school and everything. And the social worker told her that all of her kids were going to be able to get backpacks because Rainbow Pack was giving them out. And she just broke down into tears. And it's just amazing because you see, it's really a struggle for these families. They're having to make the decision between food and education. And like you said at the beginning of, this, education is so valuable and just so basic, and it has so much power, and it really is these kids' way out of the cycle of poverty. It's really the only way.
You mentioned something. I want to give some facts because we like giving facts. Dropout rates of 16 to 24-year-old students who come from low-income families are 7 times more likely to drop out than those from families with higher income. Children that live below the poverty line are 1.3 times more likely to have developmental delays or learning disabilities than those who don't live in poverty. By the end of the 4th grade, African American, Hispanic, and low-income students are already 2 years behind grade level. By the time they reach the 12th grade, they are 4 years behind. And this is all about education. I've got a few more here. Approximately 1.16 million of homeless children today will not graduate from high school. 90% of welfare recipients are high school dropouts. 2/3 of students who cannot read proficiently by the end of the 4th grade will end up in jail or on welfare. And the last one, 85% of all juveniles who interface with the juvenile court system are functionally illiterate. And I've actually found that originally when we first started the Peace Fund, we had a program called School Makes a Difference. When School Makes a Difference actually went into some of these schools that were having either educational problems, whether their grades were low, or whether we also went into the court in East Los Angeles, which actually was the welfare system where kids that were coming from battered homes, etc., were in the court system and had no outlet. So what we did, we took kids we rotated them through different classes and education. It was really interesting to see that even I did storytelling a lot of the time. So what we did, we'd have books and we'd act out the stories. And at the beginning of the class, the kids were like, they wouldn't really speak. Yeah. By the end of the class, you would see even the hardest ones were beginning to sort of, communicate or were really out there in what they were doing. So I think educating and having fun as a kid is so important.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing I always like to say is that what if the next Einstein or the next Picasso is sitting in one of these classrooms and just gets so frustrated and discouraged by school because they can't even complete their, 3rd grade math homework, and they'll never realize that they had the potential to do something amazing or that anyone really ever cared about them or cared about what they do. I mean, these kids are just... they're so stifled by a lot of people around them, and there's so much pressure put on the teachers to teach to the test, and it's losing that fun aspect of just enjoying learning and being hands-on.
Well, the other thing is also the parents, and what happens is when the parents can't get involved a lot of the time, the kids are left to do on their own, and they don't really respond. I mean, a lot of the time you don't tell your mom everything. I know that for a fact because no kid ever does. So sometimes if you're bullied at school, if you can't read at school, you're not necessarily going to tell them. So sometimes having the parent there to really guide you is very, very important because a lot of these kids that are illiterate end up, as we said, in jail. A lot of the reasons they end up in gangs and drugs and jail is because they can't read and write and express themselves, and they don't have knowledge. So I think it's very, very important. So what about technology? I mean, is it good or bad? What do you think?
I think technology...
In the classroom.
Yeah. In the classroom, I think technology can be really good. There's so many things that you can do with it and making the classroom like a multimedia environment. I know in my English class, we'll sometimes act out scenes in, Shakespeare, and a lot of us have taken to doing sound effects on our phones, and it just makes it so much more fun, and the teacher's like, wow, I haven't had people do that before. But I think it's just, learning how to integrate into the classroom in fun and, integrative ways.
Right. Ethan, what about you? Does your daughter deal with do that type of thing in her classroom? Act out stuff, or because I know your daughter's very big into.
She's big into the arts, but I don't know how much acting out she does in classrooms.
What about you, John? Did you act out in the classroom when you were a kid?
Well,
I know I did.
I graduated from high school in 1994, and we really didn't have there wasn't a lot of computer use at that time. And if you used a computer, it was for something very basic like word processing. I was an editor on my high school newspaper, so we would put we put the newspaper together on one of the very first Macintosh computers. We really didn't have a lot of technology actually in the classroom. So for me, I felt like my school experience was more about just the classic, more classic educational styles. And then as far as acting out, we did a lot of activities that we had lots of school plays and things like that were always a lot of fun to be involved in. So technology did not play a very large role at all, actually, in my education, at least at the high school level.
Well, the interesting thing is they actually is this true or false? I'm going to ask everybody in the room here. Is this true or false? People who read print text comprehend more, remember more, and learn more than those who read digital text. What do you say? Yes or no? Is that true or false?
I think that kind of makes sense. I still think there's something important, especially with books, about the tangibility of it, being able to, flip the page and stuff. I'm a big fan of still just reading books. I have a Nook, but I don't really use it that much. I think that could make sense. So
what about you, Ethan? Is printed text more easily comprehensible? You remember it better? You learn more than you actually do on a digital format?
I don't understand why it would be. I don't understand why the text would be
different.
Have some sort of different in a mental capacity if I was reading it on line.
Okay,
I would
that's
say
an interesting
probably, given the nature of your trickiness with the questions, I would say that it's probably true, but I don't know why it would be.
Okay, so what about you, John? What do you think?
That's an interesting question, and I think I'm going to kind of lean on the side of Riley about how it's better to have an actual book in your hands, because I've noticed that when I read a book or something, if I'm reading something on my iPad, for example, there's so many other things that the iPad can do that it's easy to get distracted. Oh, I'm reading, but I'll check and see what the weather's going to be tomorrow. Or, I'll check my email really quickly. Whereas if you're reading a book, you have a book in your hands, you're not, at least I'm not as prone to those kinds of distractions. If I have a book in my hands, I am in the world of the book. Where if I'm holding a device in my hands that can do all these other things, then, sometimes you have the tendency to do those other things rather than really focus on what it is that you're reading.
Well, you're all kind of correct in a sense here, because the brain interprets, and I'm reading this, the brain interprets printed and digital text in different ways. And people generally read digital text 20 to 30% slower than print. According to Pulitzer Prize-winning technology writer Nicholas Carr, studies show that reading hyperlinked text may increase the brain's cognitive load, lowering the ability to process, store, and retain information. Kate Garland, a lecturer in psychology at the University of Leicester in England, where I come from, conducted a study on the efforts of e-books on memory and found students using digital versions of the unfamiliar material had to read the same information several times to gain the same level of knowledge as print readers. Second, students reading printed books seem to be more fully to be able to digest and understand the material. Isn't that interesting? It's you never really think about that, because I read it I read scripts online a lot of the time. So it's interesting to see that actually reading printed text actually allows you more ability to remember it. So that's kind of interesting. I'd never even thought about that.
It is interesting.
There's schools across the nation are scrambling to figure out just how to use this technology. There's software and devices and there's a lot of things you see on TV that, we talk about kids learning things. And we actually had this regarding the media last week about the iPad and seeing apps on the TV that you can learn to draw and learn to drive. But what we found is what that tends to do is it stops the social aspect as well of learning. Yeah. In other words, when kids are in a classroom and they're talking to each other while they're drawing or learning how to write or read or whatever, rather than sitting in front of a TV, that social aspect kind of is much more important. Do you see that? Yeah,
I do think that there's something still really valuable. Although there are, tons of really cool apps and stuff, there's something about being like present and drawing and coloring, because like on an iPad sometimes if you're just like sitting in front of a TV, you're right that it's very one-on-one, just you watching the TV. But if you're in a group of classroom, like a classroom with a group of people, you're able to be simulated by what other people are drawing and all sorts of things.
Mm-hmm. Let's go back a little bit to Rainbow Pack. Rainbow Pack, can you tell me something about some of the companies and the sponsors that you've dealt with?
So the only real like constant sponsor we've had is G2 Printing, which has donated the folders to us for the past 4 years, which has been incredible because we need a lot of folders since there are 2 go into each backpack. But we're still sort of looking for a big corporate sponsor. Like
Xerox or something like that. Yeah, right.
Because Rainbow Pack is still really...
Xerox, if you're out there listening, we need your help.
Yeah.
Rainbowpack.org.
Thanks, John.
Yeah. Rainbow Pack is still super grassroots, and, we're still working with word of mouth and just working with friends and family. So that's sort of, even G2 Printing, that is a company that's run by a friend, dad. So, like, it's still super local and everything.
How did you get reached out? It was because one of your friends said, my dad does this printing, and that's how it came about?
Yeah, she was one of the original members of Rainbow Pack, and she was like, hey, my dad has a printing company, let's make folders. And so he did it, and he's done it for the past 4 years, and it's been incredible.
So how do people get involved with your organization?
Fundraising, joining and spreading the word about it, because I think one of the main issues still is that people don't really understand the issue, or they just don't even know it exists, because I didn't know it existed until I actually saw it in person. But we found that people really connect with it when I tell them about it. So just spreading the word. If anyone wants to do some sort of supply collection drive at their school or their kids' school, anything really.
What about technology in your school, since we discussed it? Do you have a lot in your school?
We have computers. A lot of the teachers have smart boards, and iPads are available to us to check out.
And has that increased over these years that you've been in school?
Yeah, there are certain teachers that are still very I'm just going to do this, but there are a lot of teachers that show us tons of videos and, music and stuff to sort of enhance the whole experience. Do
you think that helps?
Yeah, I definitely think it, because it's connecting, it's sometimes easy to lose students, lose their attention span. And when, they're watching a video or watching a movie or listening to something, I think they're a little more likely to pay attention. And it's appealing to our generation, and that's very media based. Right.
So you're saying, from what I get, is that the media is definitely there to help enhance the written and the reading of actually real books and real.
I don't think it needs
supplies.
to replace it. I think they can go hand in hand.
Well, I always think that's always the way. Whenever something else new comes out, everybody runs to it, and then suddenly they realize, oops, maybe we should kind of even that out a little bit, because I do believe technology does help, but I think you can't get away from what was originally there, because that is part of the brain's cognitive skills. Do you think there's any other way technology should be used in classrooms?
I really think that the most important way it can be used is just enhancing the learning environment as it is, like we were just talking about, and making it, multimedia with videos are always, super important. Music's really cool. Movies and stuff, just sort of going along with the
what type of movies do they show in there? That's kind of interesting. In movies, because we had the whole thing about media and movies and kids before, but so what type of movies do they show?
It really depends on what we're learning. It goes along with our lessons. We don't just watch random movies. If we watch a book,
not Frozen.
Yeah,
Frozen doesn't.
Yeah. If we read a book, we'll watch the movie. If we're learning about Rome, we might watch a Roman documentary or something on the History Channel, or sometimes we'll tie it into more modern movies like 300 or something like that.
That's all about Rome.
Yeah,
it's all about.
totally.
Actually, the funny thing, when that movie that came out, I'm a big history buff. I used to love history, and I do remember the 300. And when it came out, I was like, oh my God. And when they did it, I was like, oh, it's really cool, but it's kind of away from the real story. Yeah. Because, it's not. But, it was a cool movie to watch as entertainment.
But it got us engaged, and it got us listening.
Yeah.
So.
And it got you got to think. I think to a degree, some movies have that ability that they actually send you to, let me look up a little bit about that, because I do that sometimes when I see a subject matter for instance, when I watched American Sniper, which was an Oscar-nominated movie this year, I didn't know it was based on a true story, so I went and looked about the true story and read up about, the truth behind the film. So I think it does go, as we were talking about, hand in hand on the things. Now, another question for you. Like a lot of our heroes of the week, you actually went to the 3-Dash Summit for Global Teen Leaders last week, I believe, in New York City.
Yes.
How was New York?
It was my first time.
Was it your first time?
Yeah, but it was really cool. I mean, I stayed kind of in like the one little area between like the hotel and the studio, but it was
What area were you
cool.
in?
We were in. We were near Times Square and like near
42nd Street,
and then like near Penn Station and Madison Square Garden. So we were kind of in the heart.
So what was the summit like?
It was life-changing.
Was it really?
Honestly. I mean, they said at the beginning of the summit, they're like, oh, this is going to be like a life-changing experience. We're all like, yeah. Like, we, okay.
Like all 14-year-olds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I was optimistic about it. I'm like, go for it. But like, really? And coming back from it, it was absolutely incredible to be around such amazing people and hear everyone's stories, and it got me out of my shell, and it got me more experience, and I learned so much. It was
You've been in a shell.
Well,
I can't believe that somehow. You talk very, very well.
Thank you, but I still I get nervous before things. Like I said before this, I was nervous, but it's helped me sort of realize how important Rainbow Pack is, and that it's okay to get discouraged and stuff, but you just have to keep moving, and that I'm more than just a project, and all sorts of stuff. I mean, the people there were just incredible. All the faculty, all the administrators, all the speakers, and all the other GTLs, or Global Teen Leaders.
What type of issues did you discuss?
We discussed a lot of things about how to, build our brand for our project, and how to, live that brand, and, social media presence, and how to talk to media, and all sorts of different skills. And I don't even know. I'm still comprehending everything. We learned so much.
There's so much.
Well, I think that's really awesome, Riley. It's always exciting for me to hear about the summit, because I talk about the summit on the show all the time, because we've had so many of our heroes of the week who have attended it before in the past. Did you meet Michael Brevell from Hugs for Ghana?
Oh, she's just
Yeah.
like, yes!
He's like one of my best friends
Michael
now.
is going to call in to our show next week. He's going to be our hero of the week next week. He's going to call in
Yeah, he
to talk
talked to
about
me about it.
his project,
Did he
which is
really?
also involved with education. So it's just exciting to hear these great stories, and for us, we're so excited about our heroes of the week, and we're so proud of all of the incredible work that you guys do. It's always a lot of fun to hear the stories about you guys getting to meet each other and participate in the summit. That's fantastic.
Yeah, Michael honestly is one of my favorite people that I met there. He was and he actually texted me yesterday. He's like, I heard you're gonna be on the Peace Fund. I'm like, yeah, I am. He's like, I'm gonna be on next week. I'm like, oh my god.
Oh, it's getting out there. It's getting out there. Peace
right,
Fund Radio
that's
is
right.
getting out there. The one thing we want to do, and this is important for us as well, is we've just done a demographic of our listenership, and we want to bring more young people into the Peace Fund Radio so they can hear things. So we're going to start skewing some of our content perhaps towards a younger demographic so that they can actually hear it. So our Heroes of the Week are also important in that, because we want them to engage with us so that they can put their message out and hear all the other messages like the summit does about all the other amazing things that are happening, so that they might get inspired or do it in their own community.
Yeah.
So I didn't ask you how you actually got chosen to actually be in the summit. How did that happen?
So before you can even apply, you have to be nominated by an alumni. And so I was speaking at an event, and I met this girl named Lulu Cerrone, and I'd actually known her before, but we didn't really ever, get in touch. But I saw her at this event because she was also speaking, and she was like, have you heard of 3-Dash? I'm like, no. And she said, oh my gosh, you have to do this. It is the most amazing experience ever. I'm nominating you. You're going. I'm so like, okay. So then I applied, and I got in. And so when I got the call, I was just freaking out. I think I just screamed for the next 20 minutes.
Well, it's awesome. Lulu is also one of our previous heroes of the week, and she is the daughter of Adrian's former Highlander co-star Lisa Howard.
Yeah, it's so funny how that came out. Yeah.
She's
it was
amazing.
it was a really funny story. I had sent a message to Lulu after we had talked about her organization, which is Lemonade Warriors, Lemonade Warriors.com. We talked about her on the show, and I'd sent a message to the organization to let them know we'd mentioned them, and I got an email back from Lulu. She said, "Oh, thanks, that's great." I said, "Yeah, Peace Fund's a great charity. It was founded by Adrian Paul." She's like, "Oh yeah, my mom used to work with Adrian." We're like, "What?" And we found out that her mother used to be on Highlander with Adrian. It was one of my favorite stories, I think, that we've had on the Peace Fund so far, of just of it being a very small world.
It is, and as I keep saying, we're actually looking at some very interesting things that came across my desk yesterday regarding a lot of funding from different areas of the world, or one particular area of the world that wants to get involved in certain governmental things, and they're actually trying to increase the reach of charitable organizations, to help charitable organizations that are in need. And some of the countries we deal with are actually on their list, so I'm going to be actually dealing with that. But and what I said to my partner, I said, he said, "Well, we don't know any people in government." I said, "Well, you have to realize you're only literally 6 degrees of separation from everybody in the world. Somebody knows somebody, so knows somebody. So if you really want to get something happening, you will get it happening. Mm-hmm. It's as simple as that." I think. I've asked you most of the questions I'm going to ask you, most of them, but I'm going to keep your favourite one, which I said for the next couple. We've got 10 minutes left. John, do you you got any other updates for us in the meantime while we're sitting here smugly in the studio?
Nothing really that I wanted to talk about yet, because again, I've been in contact with some amazing kids who are going to be coming on the show over the next few weeks, who are going to be calling in and telling us about what they're up to. And I would rather, before I get too excited and just talk about all of it myself, I'd rather hear it from them when they come on. I would like to say that, of course, everyone out there listening can check us out at thepeacefund.org. Follow Adrian at AdrianPaul1 on Twitter. Follow Ethan at Combat Radio, and learn about all the other incredible things that Ethan is up to, charitable things he does at conventions in the community. We are also 2 accounts on Facebook and Twitter, The Peace Fund for Peace Fund Business, and Peace Fund Radio for everything related to the show. And just please help us spread the word. We get word all the time. We're contacted by people who say, we would love to help the Peace Fund, but we don't know, we're not sure what to do. Maybe we're short on cash and really can't help financially. What can we do to help? Help us spread the word. Facebook, Twitter, The Peace Fund, and peacefund.org.
Yes, and also make sure that you can go on the Peace Fund. You can also donate to the Peace Fund directly online at www.thepeacefund.org. And in actual fact, we are right now, I said this last year, but it didn't come to fruition because of some technical issues, and we got into Peace Fund Games and Peace Fund Poker. Peace Fund Poker will be happening again this year. We're just doing logistics. Peace Fund Games will probably happen in 2016, although we might have a satellite game this year, and we'll be bringing you that on our website very shortly. But our website is going to have, we're really gearing towards having something where we can get a lot of interaction for people and information that you can find out how you can actually help people in different areas of the world, or ones you want to choose that you might want to get involved with. So I think that'll be something that's coming up, very, very shortly. Nobody knows about it because I haven't told anybody yet. But Ethan's working hard there. He's very good, whenever I forget something, he's like, remember to do this.
Yes, remember.
Well, you're good. I mean, I can't, I never get to remember absolutely everything. So Riley, what is the next thing up for you at the moment? I know you got school. Yeah. I know that's part of it, but how did you get time off school, by the way?
I'm actually on spring break right now.
Oh, that was perfect.
Yeah, I had 2 weeks off of spring break, so I felt so bad for all the other GTLs that actually had school. I'm like, you have so much work to do, and so, but I'm on spring break, so. So
that's how you got here. Okay, so we got you just in time. Didn't
we?
John, do you have anything else before I start asking my final questions and getting rid of you?
I just wanted to say, thanks to Riley for taking the time to come on, and thanks to her mom, Leanna, as well, for helping out so much in getting this together. We just we're so proud of what you do, Riley, and we're so proud of our heroes of the week and their families. And I feel like it's a big part of the heart of the show is hearing these incredible stories. So thank you for that, and thank you, of course, to all of our listeners out there.
Thank you.
I just want to remind everybody out there, it's www.rainbowpack.org.
Yes.
Yeah, so I want to make sure that we get that right.
And all of our social media links are on the website, and all the information to donate and about our past events and all sorts of stuff.
Awesome. There's one other organization I do want to give a shout out to. It's called the Education Trust. That's edtrust.org. The Education Trust promotes high academic achievement for all students at all levels, pre-kindergarten through college. Their goal is to close the gap in opportunity and achievement that consign far too many young people, especially those from low-income families who are Black, Latino, or American Indian, who live on the margins of the American mainstream. So you can check them out at edtrust.org. Now, Riley, I want to ask you a couple of other small questions, although they probably won't be small. If you could give other young people any advice, what would you say to them?
Just in general?
Well, yeah, I mean, what would it be in general? Yeah, based on education, in a sense.
That's a tough one.
Well, we don't like easy questions on Peace Fun Radio.
I mean, I honestly would just say that you can really do anything. I mean, that sounds so cheesy, but it's honestly true. That
do you know how many kids we've had? Sorry, kids. When I say kids, even 14, 12, they say exactly the same thing. You can do whatever. And that's the great thing about being young. There are no boundaries yet.
And I think that, people can get all bogged down by thinking, I'm just, too young or too old to do anything about things. But that's not the case. If you set your mind to it, you can do it. There's no reason why you can't. Absolutely none.
So what advice would you give to other children or young people, should I say, that want to start their own charities like you did when you were 10?
I would just say don't be afraid to start small, because even, it sounds, but just helping one person, I mean, that's even ridiculous to say, because you're helping one person, a whole human being you just helped and made an impact on their life. And that is just incredible. And, you're probably going to make an impact on way more than just one person's life, but you don't want to put so much pressure on yourself that, I have to close the achievement gap. I have to end world hunger. That's not your responsibility, but you can do your part to help it. So just go for it.
We talk a lot on Peace Fun Radio about the domino effect, which is basically you help one, who helps two, who helps five, who helps 20. And eventually, you don't know how many people you've actually have heard what your message is or what you're going to do. And so you really never know. But just that you put it out there, it has that domino effect on so many other areas.
Yeah. I mean, I did this photo project with some of the students at Haddon, and I asked them what they wanted to be when they grew up. And some of the students put Rainbow Pack. And I was just like, that's so cool. I mean,
so awesome.
Yeah. I mean, to think that I have inspired someone to maybe go out there and help someone in their community or do something else. I mean, that is incredible to me.
So have you ever other kids that have come in and actually want to work with you on the organization to help? Have you found that as well? I
have a whole team of my friends, inside my school and outside of school that really want to help and get involved. And that's really important to me, as inspiring other people. It's like you said, contribute to that domino effect and help people that help people and help more people.
The one thing we've found on Peace Fund is the fact that, when people want to help, you get them then.
Yeah.
You don't call them 2 months later, because situations change very quickly. Mm-hmm. So my advice is, when somebody says something, find something that they can start doing very simple that they can get involved with and they feel part of the organization, because that does help.
So I think people really like feeling like they're a part of a movement or a part of something. So that's something we really try and do with the whole Rainbow Pack sort of pack mentality, is that you really are a part of a movement and you are changing people's lives.
Well, it's amazing. 14 years old. When I was 14, the only thing I was looking at was soccer, football from where I come from, and just having a good time, pretty much. I go to school. I was very smart when I first started school. I actually learned. My grades were okay, but all I wanted to do was play cards when I got to 15, 16 years old, which is kind of dumb of me, really, in a sense. But to have kids or young people come into the studio or listen and hear about them doing what they're doing. It's so inspiring to us. I mean, Ethan and I have spoken about this many times, about how we feel so small when we hear about what you guys do out there. So I want to congratulate you, Riley, and congratulations on being Peace Fund Hero of the Week.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. And thanks to your mom, who's sitting there smiling now. Thank you to all of you out there who have listened to this show. We will be continuing about education next week and the week after. As I said, we have Riley Gantt here from Rainbow Pack in the studio. You can listen to the rest of the show online at the LA Talk Radio website. It'll also be up on our Twitter and Facebook sites. And in closing, since we have the man himself, Bill Gates, I want to close with a quote from him. Technology is just a tool. In terms of getting the kids working together and motivating them, the teacher is most important. This is Adrian Paul and Ethan Dettenmaier. We will talk to you again.
You're listening to Peace Fund Radio with Ethan Dettenmaier and Adrian Paul, right here on LA Talk Radio.